Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you again with another modern deck profile, and today's focus is going to be on Runick Spright for Hire, which is a deck that honestly, I'm surprised made it past the ban list, not because it's like super oppressive or anything, which it is when it goes first, but mainly because not a single Runick card was hit. I mean, I guess Konami thought they were fine, or they're just going through like one last desperate hope to try and sell the Megatins, but yeah, it didn't get any hits, so as a result, it's still a very playable deck, and out of all the Spright variants, I definitely feel like this one is the greediest of the bunch, just because it does lose harder to draw on Lockbird, but the pluses that you can gain are just so much more powerful, I guess, in a sense, just because you're going to have your full board, and then in addition to that, you're pretty much going to have like an entire hand as well. So you have a bunch of interactions on the field, a bunch of interactions in your hand because of the Runick cards, and if you go first and you don't get hit by Droll, there are very, very few decks that can actually just beat this deck. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Now, compared to a lot of the decks that get featured on this channel or just played in like general modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, this deck actually has a really small monster count, and that's mainly due to the fact that the Runic cards take up a lot of space, and those are kind of like the main focus points of the decks. The monsters themselves are just kind of there to enhance the Runic cards, if anything. So, as a result, we're going to be starting off with 3 Spright Blue. It's going to be your main play starter. Literally, Special Summon searches out any single Spright monster from your deck to your hand. And what you're typically going to be adding are Spright Carrot and Spright Red, just to be able to help you play around hand traps or ensure that your boards don't get broken. Now, typically you would be seeing cards like Spright Jet, but ultimately I just decided to cut them for this specific variant just to see what it would be like and try to make room for more Runic spells. And honestly, I don't really miss them all that much, just because it always felt like a win more card, and when you rely on cards like Spright Jet and Spright Starter, even though you're supposed to be using your Spright cards at the end of the combo, sometimes you're forced to use them in the early combos, and cards like Starter just lock you out, which means that Spright Jet, as a result, just getting Starter isn't really like the be-all end-all. Those are more for Spright focused deck cores instead of a deck featuring Sprites, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is pretty much all you need for the Spright monster lineup. And then we have the Fur Hires, being Rex, Spright for Hire. Level 2, it searches out any Runic spell or trap from your deck to your hand. This is going to be like one of your main play starters, and it's pretty much one of the cards that you want to open as much as possible, just because it gets your entire engine going. Then to complement those, we have the one Donpa, which also level 2, but it has an additional effect where it can destroy a face-up card on the field when you special summon a Fur Hire while it's already previously face-up. You have Beat to help you search out Fur Hire monsters. And then lastly, you have Rafael, Champion for Hire, who lets you excavate equal to the number of Fur Hire monsters you control with different names. And if you do, you can basically add one card from them to your hand. So it's like Pot of Duality in a sense, but better, I guess. But yeah, that's it for the Fur Hire monsters. Like I said, it's a really small engine when it comes to the monsters, just because the deck so heavily relies on the Runic cards themselves. But we still play some hand traps to go with the actual engine. So we're going to be playing 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. It's the most generic of the bunch, you know, it hits pretty much everything. And then lastly, we just play 2 Nibirus. If you want to play Jet and Starter, these are definitely the 2 to cut, just because at least from the main deck, you should obviously still be citing Nibirus, just because so many players aren't respecting them, and there are a lot of like really combo heavy decks that just, you know, don't respect it. But if you want to play the Jet and the Starter, I definitely recommend just cutting these 2 and going from there. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck, even though it's mainly just spells, because this deck doesn't play any traps for game 1, because let's face it, your boards are going to be like really oppressive. Alright, so stay tuned. Now when it comes to the spell lineup, like I said, it's pretty much just going to be purely dominated by the Runic cards. And for the few spaces that we do have, it's pretty much going to be devoted to the For Hire stuff. So as a result, we're going to be playing 3 Fossil Dig. This is literally the go-to searcher that we use to search out Rex Fright for Hire, just because it's a dinosaur monster for some reason. So Fossil Dig searches it. And this is, even though this card is responsible for helping the deck be as consistent as possible, it's also one of the biggest reasons why it's weak to cards like Droll and Lockbird, just because like I said, of all the Runic, Spright, whatever variants that you may see, this one definitely struggles the most against them, just because there's so many searches and cards trying to drop, because the ultimate end goal of the deck is to have a full board with like at least 4 to 6 cards in hand to just disrupt your opponent during their next turn and ensure that they just cannot win. And you know, it's just the risk you take when you play something that just has the highest potential in the room as possible compared to like all the other variants. But yeah, so you play 3 Fossil Dig, 1 Rookie for Hire, you tribute 1 monster, then you special summon 1 for Hire monster from your deck or your hand that has one level higher or one level lower. So you're typically going to go like Rex, add this, activate your key for hire, tribute Rex, special summon beat, and then continue your combo from there. Then you have one Mayhem for hire, which is just monster reborn for hires. And that's it for the for hire cards. And for the rest of this deck, it's literally just Runick spells. So you have 2 Runick Fountain. You know, it's good. It's semi-limited for a reason. Surprised it still exists. Then you have 3 Runick Tip. Searches for any Runick card and then banishes the top card of your opponent's deck. 3 Runick Destructions. You target one spell and trap your opponent controls, destroy it, and then they banish the top 4. Runick Flashing Fire, where you target one special summon monster your opponent controls, then you destroy it and banish the top 2 cards of their deck. 3 Runick Freezing Curses. You target one face-up effect monster your opponent controls, negate the effect, and then banish the top 3 cards of their deck. And then for the final 3 we're playing 3 Runick Slumber, where you target one face-up monster in the field, so you can target yours or your opponent's, which is pretty relevant depending on like what you're playing in the extra deck. And then the next time that monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, it is not destroyed. Also, it can't attack this turn, which pretty much doesn't matter because you never have a battle phase anyways. And then you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. So you have a couple of win conditions, right? You can just deck out your opponent, you can go full combo, just wait a turn, then finish them off on the next one. This deck is very versatile with the ways that it can actually beat your opponent, and that's what makes it so good, honestly. Then you have a bunch of one-up, or just not a bunch, but a couple of one-up Runick spells, being Runick Dispelling, where if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, you just, except during the draw phase, you discard one random card from their hand, then banish the top 2 cards of their deck, so you get hand looping, in addition to being able to banish more cards off the top. And then for the final one, we have Runick Smiting Storm, where you banish cards on the top of your opponent's deck equal to the number of cards they control. So this can very, very easily get things out of hand, especially if like you're going second and trying to crack your opponent's board, as they'll typically even like once they've used up all their negates, have a pretty decent amount of cards. So it's very easy to deck your opponent out. But not that you should be going for that, because let's face it, this is a combo deck, it's not a mill deck. But yeah, with that, that's the spell lineup and the main deck. 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck portion. For the extra deck, it's pretty tight, but I feel like every single card in here serves its purpose pretty well. So as a result, we're going to be playing 2 Hugin the Runick Wings. You know, discard a card, then you can search for Runick Fountain. Hopefully this card doesn't get Ash, because it is one of the biggest choke points that the deck has, as if you don't have access to Fountain, you pretty much lose a lot of your grind game. Then you're playing 1 Geri the Runick Fangs, which gets you Fountains back from your graveyard, 1 Munin the Runick Wings, which is your time card, and then for the final Runick Fusion, we play 1 Sleipnir the Runick Main, which this is basically like SP Little Knight at home, because you can banish 1 card on each side of the field during the battle phase, and then it's a free token generator once per turn as well, whenever your opponent draws for turn or just searches or whatever. So it's okay. It's not the greatest, but you know, it's fine for what it does. Then we only play 3 Exceed monsters just because the links are pretty much going to be like the main star of the show for this deck. So you have 1 number 29 Mannequin Cat. This is mainly for post sighting, for once you figure out what kind of deck your opponent is playing, you know, you can put in the Floodgate monster that beats it, whether it's like Thunder King Ryo or End of Anubis, you know, things of that nature that you normally wouldn't see in the main deck nowadays. Then you play the 1 Gigantic Spright, because it is still a Spright deck. And then if you're going second and your opponent has a big board, you're going to be making ty-phon Sky Crisis, just because it's a really good card to help you deal with those boards. Like, you just make ty-phon, then your Runick cards are pretty much just going to go to town for the rest of the game. Then after that, we just play a bunch of links. So we're going to be playing 2 Donner Dagger for hire, and then 1 Folgo Justice for hire. That's pretty much all you need for the for hire monsters, if I'm being honest. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. Then you have the 1 IP Madquerena, the 1 SP Little Knight to go with your Sleipnir, you know. You can never go wrong with just having multiple banishes and field disruptions. 1 Knightmare Unicorn, because it's just a good generic out for removal. And Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, when you have to deal with big boss monsters that can't be basically targeted or dealt with normally. And with that, that's the Runick Spright for hire deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!